Shalom. Kal Halal YAHAWASHI by Hashem Quadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders. Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so, now more so than ever. To the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird. And to the Akwaf that are listening and learning to you, I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Chicago, coming at you with another lesson in history. And what you're looking at is image from Frank Miller's graphic novel, The 300, which they turned into a movie. Now, the place that gives you the connection, or where the 300 is talked about, or not the 300 in general, but the Spartans themselves, which are the Lacedaemonians. That's what that symbol means on his shield. It looks like an upside down V, or however you want to say it, up right side up V. That's a Greek letter for the letter L, which basically represents the Lacedaemonians. And one of the reasons why, just to add insult to injury, another one of the reasons why the Apocrypha was removed from the King James 1611 Bible by the Bible Destruction Group is because the Lacedaemonians are proven in biblical history to be Israelites. And so that would screw up the whole Greek history thing, because the Edomites, who refer to themselves as Greek, has claimed this heritage as a part of them. All right. So, and the fake Jews, the imposter Jewish people, have not. So now you have an issue here, because it clearly tells you in biblical history that these that the Spartans are Israelites. And it even goes further in breaking some of that history down, which I'm going to read some of this history of the Maccabees, being Jonathan and Simon reaching out to their brethren, the Spartans, the Lacedaemonians, is right there in the first book of Maccabees, like in the right around the 11th and 12th chapter, even before that. All right, but I'm going to read something in the Second Ezra 7 and 28. All right, because we're going to talk about the Hellenization of the Israelites, of the Jews, because they were, because you remember, actually I'm going to start in First Maccabees, how Alexander got dominion over the people of Europe, over the brown Japhetic people, is what you're looking at. All right, that's who he was fighting against. He was fighting against Japhet. And you could see the dark Negroid type features, if you will, on Xerxes. Because when he made this comic book, he made, Xerxes, what's the word, atomically correct. And many of the soldiers that, from Asia. The Asians, because some clown made a comment on a video about that I did on the Maccabean channel, laughing, scoffing. So the next thing you know, the Asians are gonna be black too. It was a video about the Iberians, the Scots, and the Britons, how they were not so-called white people. And well, I got news from you. The people that came from Asia, from the East, because that's what it means, they were dark flesh people too. As a matter of fact, the whole world was brown flesh people until Esau Edom was born. So when Alexander got dominion, and he began to rape and pillage, and he lightened a lot of people up, and then placed his garrison and his men in places where they do not belong, where they were not from, and they've done that until this very day. But this is First Maccabees 1 and 1, and it reads, "And it happened after Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Kittim, had smitten Darius of the Persian and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece." So he reigned in his stead, if you would, I'm going to use my ruler as a pointer, over Xerxes. All right. Xerxes is in that line, that bloodline of Darius. All right. or should I say Darius is in Xerxes' bloodline. All right, I do believe that Xerxes came first. I'm not 100% sure on that. I haven't read that particular history about Xerxes and Darius in a minute, but nevertheless, they are family. They are in the same bloodline, sperm line, as far as father and son is concerned. You know, or grandfather. I'm not sure of the order, but they're in the same bloodline. But nevertheless, he reigned over these dark flesh people. All right, as you see the soldier that one of the Spartans is killing with the cornrow braids and long braids in his head. All right, which is something that's also synonymous with Jacob, with Israelites. You can see his dark flesh and his dark features, that he's clearly not a pale European or pale Asian, if you would, because that's where this battle took place at, you know, and or where these soldiers were coming from that the Spartans were fighting against at the hot gates, I should say. So if we go in that same chapter in Maccabees, we go to verse 9. Actually, I've started verse 7. It says, so Alexander reigned 12 years, then died, and his servants bare rule, every one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. And there came out of them a wicked root. So evils were multiplied in the earth when Esau Edom, the so-called white man, took dominion over Greece, which from there he got dominion over all of Europe. All right. And thus they're referred to themselves as Europeans unto this day. But once again, that is not their homeland or where they're from. Same way they're referred to themselves as Canadians, as Americans, as South Africans, as Australians, but they're not indigenous to those places. And this was the same thing with Europe. They're not indigenous to Europe. They did come from the mountains, but they came from Mount Seir, which is south of Israel. All right. When they went into the Caucasus Mountains, it was because they were forced up there. Now, before I go any further, let's read. Now that we're talking about the Jews, let's read about the Jews. All right. Let's get a biblical, two of my favorite scriptures, very plain, to explain what they look like. Okay. So this is Jeremiah 14:2, and it reads, Judah mourneth, and the gates thereof languish. They are black unto the ground. All right. And that word in the Hebrew, which it was originally written, it means kadar, which means dark skinned. All right. So they look more like Xerxes than the image of Leonidas with his full beard. That's another thing in this with the Greeks. They were into shaving their faces bald, but these Spartans, this king had a full beard because that was a custom of the Israelites. All right, this is also Lamentations 4:8, and it reads, their visage, meaning when you look upon them, when you're looking at them, the vision which you see, their visage is blacker than a coal. They are not known in the streets. Their skin cleaveth to their bones. It is withered. It has become like a stick. And, so basically we're describing their physical appearance of their skin. All right. And then to get even deeper, Lamentations 5:10, it reads, our skin was black like the oven because of the terrible famine. So, and these were scriptures referring to the Jews. All right. So now that we've done that, let's go to the biblical account where the Jews which was a title that was placed upon them by the Romans, and some of their dealings with the Romans, in fact. Because the Romans could not tell the difference between Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and they all became, literally, it was kind of like a derogatory term. They all became Judeans, not Jews. So in the Bible it's written Jew, but in most cases it actually said Judean. All right. But here we go. Let's start in First Maccabees, the 12th chapter, and I'm going to start at verse 1. And it says, now when Jonathan saw the time served, he chose certain men and sent them to Rome. See? All right. For to confirm and renew the friendship that they had with them, he sent letters also to the Lacedaemonians. Those are the Spartans. All right. And it reads, and other places for the same purpose. So they went unto Rome and entered into the Senate, and Jonathan the high priest and the people of the Jews sent us unto you, to the end you should renew the friendships which you had with them, and league as in former time. Upon this the Romans gave them letters upon the governors of every place. So that's why you have a book of Romans, because there was a lot of Israelites, Jews, if you would, in Rome. All right. It says, unto the governors of every place, that they should bring them into the land of Judea peaceably. And this is the copy of the letter which Jonathan wrote to the Lacedaemonians. Those are your Spartans again. All right. And it says, Jonathan the high priest and the elders and the nation of the priests and the other people of the Jews and the Lacedaemonians and the Lacedaemonians, their brethren, send greetings. All right. So the Spartans were brethren according to the flesh. The Spartans were indeed Israelites. Okay. And then it goes, and if you keep reading all the way down, it's going to tell you unfortunately the death of Jonathan, and that dealings with the Romans, and basically they were caught in the middle of a civil war between Edomite factions. And I'm going to read a little bit of history about that, because it's all interconnected in this chapter dealing with this guy Tryphon. All right, so I'm going to read something in secular history about Tryphon, which is talking about this very time here that I'm reading about in the Bible. So I'm going to go down to verse 20 now in 1 Maccabees 12 and 20. And it says, and Arius, the king of the Lacedaemonians, to the Onias, the high priest, greetings. It is found in writing that the Lacedaemonians and the Jews are brethren, and that they are of the stock of Abraham. All right, so the Spartans are indeed not Edomite white men, so-called, but indeed dark like the ground, black unto the ground. Their skin was black like the oven. They were Israelites. They were Jews of the stock of Abraham. Greeks, if you would. All right, and what kind of Greeks? These kind of Greeks. This is one of my favorite books, one of my favorite go-tos, right here. Okay, this is soldiers coming to the assistance of King Basiris, a scene from Cateria Hydria. So these were Japhetic soldiers right there coming to the aid of a king who was being slayed by, because I have another book that has the other side. Was it a big African looking dude who was an Israelite? Was Hercules, and he was killing those priests. All right, that book is behind me somewhere. I don't want to stop what I'm doing, but nevertheless, here, like when you look at the other movie that Esau put everyone as white, there's King Memnon, and the Negroes. Look, see, art tells the truth. Okay, this is Psalms 85 and 11, because when you look at the Greek images, you know, from the digs that they dug up, there it is. There's details of the head of Memnon and the Negroes black figured. So King Memnon and his soldiers were so-called black people. When you look at that movie Troy, this one, which starred Brad Pitt there, Orlando Bloom, and I forget this other guy on the end, but he, you know, Brad Pitt portrayed Achilles. All right, he portrayed Achilles. All right, and Agamemnon is the guy right there at the top with the woman on the right, and right there with his brother, who's supposed to be the king of Sparta. All right, so we know that the Spartans were not pale men. So when you look at that movie Troy, you know, once again you had a Esau using Hollywood to deceive people and screw with the mindsets of people when it comes to history. And he portrayed almost everyone in that movie was a so-called white person. But we know that was not true, because the fact that Alexander the Great, or Alexander the Creep, as we call him here among Israel, he didn't invade and take that land over until 333 years after the Battle of Troy, which was portrayed in that movie. So 333 years later, the so-called white man became a European. Now, I'm going to read a bit of the history about this guy Tryphon, which is mentioned quite a few times in the chapter in Maccabees that I was reading. All right, so this is Tryphon. It says, surname of Dietis, the usurper of the Syrian throne. And I'm going to, YAHAWASHI do a part 2 and go into this civil war and how the Maccabees got caught up in it and, in the death of Jonathan. All right, and then how Simon got the dominion, because now you had lost the great, Judas Maccabees, and then his mighty brother Jonathan, and the only one left at this time, with this point, was Simon. And how, once again, they making covenants and agreements with Esau, Edom, and they always, betrayed them. That's why the scripture says, "Trust not thine enemy." Once again, let me start reading this history on Tryphon. It says, Tryphon, the surname of Dietis, the usurper of the Syrian throne. He was native to Apamia and had been in the service of Alexander Balas. We're going to read about all these people. All right, this is secular history. All right, this is secular history found in encyclopedias. All right, on the death of Balas, 145 BC, Tryphon, taking advantage of the complaints of the discontent among the troops of Demetrius II, Nicator, set up the younger son of Balas, Antiochus VI, as the claimant to the throne against Demetrius. 1 Maccabees 11 and 39. See, that's the chapter before I was reading. So this civil war was going on between these Edomites. The Jews under Jonathan wasn't dead yet. He didn't die until chapter 12 in the Bible of 1 Maccabees. Then the Jews under Jonathan came to the assistance of Demetrius in his difficulties against the revolting subjects. But Demetrius was confirmed on his throne. Soon Demetrius of Salakia soon made it apparent that he did not intend to fulfill his promises to his Jewish allies, we'll say his Israelite allies. All right. And that's 1 Maccabees 11 and 53. It says, consequently, Jonathan and Simon joined Tryphon and Antiochus, securing many advantages for their country. 1 Maccabees 11 and 54. Jonathan inflicted a severe defeat on the forces of Demetrius. I just read about that. The success of the Jewish leaders awakened the jealousy of the suspicions of Tryphon, who determined to thwart the further plans of Jonathan and remove him as an obstacle in the way of securing the crown for himself. And he did that. All right. By an act of shrewd treachery, Tryphon captured Jonathan at Ptolemais and butchered his followers. So basically, Jonathan had a huge, as you read in the Bible, he had, I think, 40,000 Israelite men, soldiers with him. And then once peace was secured, and he, or so he thought, he sent them all away but 5,000. All right. And then he sent away the 3,000 went to do something else. And then another 1,000 went to do something else. And he only had 1,000 men with him. And then he was surrounded by a great army where they were probably outnumbered 10 to 1 or more. And they killed him. They set him up. That's basically how it happened. And that's right there in 1 Maccabees, the 12th chapter. This matter of fact, what I've just read to you could well have been one of the greatest movies ever created in Hollywood. But they couldn't, because it would expose the fact that the Spartans are indeed Israelites and not Greeks, and not Edomite Greeks, self-proclaimed Greeks. All right. And it says, and that was in 1 Maccabees 12 and 48, where Jonathan falls with his Israelite men. Simon, the brother of Jonathan, now undertook the conduct of the affairs and thwarted Tryphon in his attempts upon Jerusalem, whereupon the latter murdered Jonathan at Bascama, 1 Maccabees 13 and 1, and in 143 BC. Tryphon next murdered the young Antiochus the sixth, 1 Maccabees 13:31, and claimed the throne of Syria for himself. See, they were caught in between, like I said, this civil war between these Edomites, which is pretty much what's going on to this day. When you're looking at the last two Edomite powers is Russia and America, and they are opposed to each other. All right, just like Americans are, is totally a house divided, because weeks away from shit hitting the fan here in America, the way things are going with this division over this COVID, you know, and all this other stuff that's going on. All right, the racially, politically, yeah, this place is a mess. It says, next, Tryphon next murdered the young Antiochus, read that, and claimed the throne of Syria for himself, but see the chronology as given to Shura, the 4th edition, chapter 1, page 172. Simon now went over to the side of Demetrius on the condition that Judea should be free from tribute to Syria, a privilege that was rather in power of Tryphon than of Demetrius to give. And so in the 170th year, 143 BC, was the yoke of the heathen taken away from Israel. 1 Maccabees 13:41. And in 138 BC, Demetrius was captured in Mithridates. So I'm going to stop right there because that proved the point. And like I said, had this been made into a movie, it would have been far greater than the 300, which was a great movie, superb movie. Right, the story of the Maccabees. But this portion of the Spartans being in the middle of the story of the Maccabees throws a monkey wrench into that plan, because this shows you how E is divided and how he's lied about history plainly and clearly. Kal Halal YAHAWAH YAHAWASHI by Hashem Rakar Kodash Wa Abad Babal Shalom.